Hello there, and welcome to episode 5 of the Or So She Says podcast. My name is Narissa Shea, and I am a personal trainer, EIQ certified nutritionist, yoga instructor, a sport and exercise psychology consultant, and a professional Irish dancer. My humblest apologies for the massive gap between episode 4 and 5. As a lot of you know, if you do follow me or you're a client of mine or a friend of mine, I was actually on tour recently in Germany, and needless to say, trying to find a quiet corner in random hotels in Germany was not as easy as I thought. So here we are, episode 5. I promise you it was worth the wait. I am so excited for this episode today. Today I'm going to be talking to Siobhan Hagan. Now, I'm pretty sure she doesn't need an introduction. She is someone that I have followed for years, and I really look up to, not only with her own journey with health and fitness, but also with regards to her approach on life and also the career path she took. She really is the reason why I have ended up in this industry and the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing at the moment. So she's been a qualified personal trainer for over 7 years. And in that time, she's helped thousands of women become happy with their body. She draws on her own personal experience and education to empower women with the right mindset to live the life they want while being happy with the relationship they have with their bodies. So she's not only very passionate about health and fitness, but also getting as much living as we can out of our lives. She left her own career in the corporate world to follow her passion. She built a following online through sharing her struggles with getting in shape while still trying to live her life. And she believes in finding the right balance to get long-term results. So without further ado, here we go, episode 5 of the Or So She Says podcast with Siobhan O'Hagan. I'm so excited for this episode. Hello, Siobhan. How are you?
I'm great, Narissa. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming on. Oh my God. I know you get this all the time, but I've been following you for years, like your own fitness journey and then your journey into PT, an online coach. And you're pretty much the reason why I ended up in this industry. So I have a lot to thank you for.
That's amazing. I was just thinking, I was like, I remember I followed you because you were in hotel quarantine the same time as me.
Yeah.
Over a year ago. Was it? No. I can't remember. I've done a few hotel quarantines. I can't narrow it down.
It was pretty much a year ago because I think we were supposed to be on the same flight, and then something happened with your flight, and I messaged you, and then you were messaging me because I was in quarantine.
Yeah, that was. I think if it was last year, I got COVID at Christmas and had to delay my flight then. That's what it was. Yeah. But yeah, and you were on your way to Bali. Did you find yourself out there?
Oh, I did. Well, I went into my yoga teacher training. So, like that's what everyone does when they go over there. They're like,
oh, I know, I'm the opposite. I just left Bali after 4 years and started my yoga teacher training online.
I was literally about to say to you, well, it was one of my questions for later on. I was like, I seen that you just signed up to the teacher training. I was like, and you just did your breath work as well.
Yes. Yeah. God, who am I? Yeah. I know. Leave Bali and have a spiritual awakening.
I love it.
Yeah. So I found breath work in Bali, and I didn't know what it was. My neighbor was basically doing it all the time, and I kept saying, I must try that sometime. And then one day I went to it and it blew my mind. I was like, what just happened? When can I do that again? Yeah. And I would describe it as like being in like a dream state, but like really like pleasurable and happy, and then like emotional as well. Yeah. And then so when I did it again, myself and Cece did it on the roof, and Jamie was facilitating it, and like I just had this mad like thing. I was like, I came out of it, I was like, hey, I'm going to move to London, and it was just like that. And it's funny how things have worked out so amazingly. And now I've done the course to be a breathwork facilitator myself, even though I'm like a little bit skeptical. I'm not that spiritual or anything like that. Like I might be changing a little bit now, but like even yesterday I did a session on CC, and it was so deep, so amazing. And I'm like, how did I do that? Like it feels like something else is working through me.
Yeah.
So I still find it hard to describe to people what it actually is. It's almost like saying you're like high on your breath.
Yeah.
but in a really controlled manner. I don't know.
If you haven't
Um,
experienced it yet, though, I think like it's like when I tell people sometimes you can cry in yoga, they're like, "What is wrong with you?" And I was like, "Have you ever done a hip opening class?" I was like, "I just bawled
yeah,
crying when we did breath work. Like I've done it a few times, but we did it over doing the YTT over there, and I mean the whole class was just bawling crying. Like it was so
yeah,
cathartic, but at the same time, you can't explain it if you haven't done it, and people are just like, "Oh, Narissa's a bit woo woo now since she went to
yeah, I
Bali."
know.
I was
But you
like,
know
no,
what?
it was always woo woo. It's fine.
I struggled a little bit in Bali because I felt like some people were just making stuff up. And I almost went the other direction. I'd have people telling me stuff and I'm like, that's not possible. And so I'd be so skeptical and became kind of closed. Whereas when I first went to Bali, I really was spiritual. I don't know. I don't know how to say, wouldn't know how to actually describe what I believed, but I don't know. I found myself becoming a lot more scientific and a lot more skeptical of everything. And I think it was because of the polarization. Like it was the people who were, selling manifestation courses
Yeah.
based off, and I'm like, did you manifest it or was it privilege? And
Yeah.
I then became polarized the other way, and but I was like, no, but I still believe that there is something there, and there's something underlying all this flow in the world. I don't know how to describe it. So I think I'm even getting a little bit more back into that now, just the way my life's working out by trusting my gut and just, I don't know, going with signs and stuff. So yeah, I left Bali and found myself again.
I found myself in London. I love that actually. I was in London for the first time this year, like randomly in
Oh,
London.
first time.
And I was like, oh my God, how have I never been here before? It's like not far
Yeah.
away.
I
Beautiful
think a lot of
city.
people in Dublin, I think it's very similar to Dublin. So like, I know of good few people have never been to London because they're kind of like, why bother? It's cold and close. If you're going to travel, go somewhere else. But I actually think it's so different to Dublin. It's
Yeah.
huge. There's so much more going on. I do love Dublin as well. Like I'm so excited to go home now for Christmas. But I just think, yeah, I just love London. There's just a lot going on.
It was such a random move for you because like I've been following you for years and then it was like all of a sudden you decided, oh, London. And I was like, London. And then randomly
Yeah.
I ended up in London with a bit of work like a couple of weeks later and I was like, oh, I get it. I was like, it's really
Yeah.
cool here.
Yeah, I spent last summer here, and the only problem, like I loved it last summer. Like for me, I just want to, I want somewhere where I find it really easy to be healthy and
Yeah.
productive. Whereas, like I spent a lot of time in Portugal, like where my sister lives as well. But for me, I always get a little uneasy there because I'm like, oh, I don't want to go for a run. I don't want to go to the gym. I just want to do jujitsu and Muay Thai and walk around, and
Yeah.
eat healthy, convenient food, which I kind of struggle to find in Alvor. So like I love going there for holidays, but like for me, my environment has to be conducive of like me being healthy and productive.
Yeah.
And last summer I came to London and sure walk the legs off myself, like losing weight like no tomorrow. And then but yet having lots of fun and eating and drinking, and then also having great training, like doing the jiu-jitsu here, great gyms, just getting around easy, convenient food, eating healthy is really easy here. A bit more expensive, obviously, but
You found the
the only,
balance.
yeah. And then last year,
Yeah.
I was paying short-term rental on apartments and it was robbery. Like as much as I loved it last summer, I was like, it doesn't make sense to stay another month. Like, so I left and went back to Bali, and I mean, that was always the plan. But then I don't know, when I had that moment of, maybe it's time to leave Bali, I was like, but that means I could get a long-term rental in London, which makes a lot more sense than if I'm staying. And even then, like my work ethic has changed completely then since I've been here as well. Like I'm, back training people, like doing the yoga teacher training, doing the breathwork course, like just being kind of more productive than I was
Yeah.
in Bali. And that's not Bali's fault, that's my fault. I just, I think I'm inherently lazy. So like if someone's like, lie at the pool, I'm like, yeah. Yeah, but in
Okay.
here, no one's offering to lie at the pool here. It's everyone's working, so I kind of find myself being more productive, which is great. So that means that like overall, I'm happy when it comes to work, health, fitness, social life. I'm close to family now, which is a big thing for me as well.
Yeah, yeah. This actually ties in perfectly to my first question then, because my first question, I was going to jump straight in and not talk about weight loss, not talk about anything. I want to talk about something you talk about all the time, values and living a value-based life and how
Yeah,
that has shaped your decisions. Because something I always talk to my clients about in their intake forms, I'm like, if you're comfortable, do you know your top 3 to 5 values? And then let's talk about your goals. Because I was like, unless you can get clear on your values, then your goals, you're not going to be able to get, they go, oh, I want weight loss, I want weight loss. But then all their values are like socializing and this and
Yeah.
this and this. And I'm like, there's no congruency here. So I was like, something you talk about a lot is values. And I would love for you to talk about this and how it's guided your life decisions, because I think if you say it, then they're definitely going to listen to why I keep saying it's important.
I know, sure, I can't get my clients to listen to me about it sometimes. They're like, please do the mindset section, please. You know, they just want the calories and the workouts. And I'm like, no, the mindset section is so important. Because it is, like, I realize that's what's got me through life. You know, I went through, I always think of like before I was, I don't want to say woke, but awakened, or like, you know, I was just kind of going through life and, you know, working in software and recruitment. And then I wanted to change, didn't know what, like, I didn't know what, my body was just telling me to like do something else. And I fell into personal training because, you know, someone's like, what do you want to do all day? And I was like, go to the gym. And even then, but then when I did all that and I really enjoyed that process. I feel like I was doing something for myself and like building a business, and got into the personal training. And I just, after a couple of months of it though, I kind of felt a little uneasy again. And I was like, no. I was like, this is it. Like you've got your dream job. Like what? You can't do anything else. And I think it was actually maybe reading Tony Robbins' book, Awaken the Giant Within, where I probably learned about values. And you know, I realized that freedom and happiness were like my top values. I didn't even care about health that much at the time. It was just freedom and happiness. You know, in your 20s, you don't care that much about health. And I just wanted, so, you know, like it was like close your eyes and imagine, you know, the dream. And I had this idea of the laptop on the beach. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'm not in the right place then to be doing that. And I think I naturally started doing online coaching anyway, because I built a big following online and a lot of followers were, you know, not local for the gym. So I just was like, right, let me push this online a bit more. Like this is 2016, 2017, you know, like not that many people were doing online coaching. And I built that business up. And then in 2017, I went fully online. And sorry, to go back to values, it's like all my decisions are based off having that freedom and happiness as a value. Yeah. So it was a big decision to leave the clients in the gym, but I also knew I couldn't be dropping in and out. If you want to be training people, you can't travel all the time and be consistent. So, but you know, I was like, my value here isn't to make more money, it's for freedom. So it's decisions led by your values are a lot easier when you're clear on your values. You know, I think people spend a lot of their lives just chasing money and status without realizing that it doesn't actually matter. So that I use that all through guidance and decisions in life, you know, and it's gone full circle a little bit. You know, I've been very happy with all the decisions I've made so far. Living freedom and happiness, it meant, you know, sacrificing security, having any kind of stable base, you know, relationships, all that were all sacrificed, but I didn't care because I was like, it's a value-based decision that I've made, whatever way it works. But then more recently, I've kind of, you know, when I had this like existential crisis this year, I was like, what if our values, you know, I was like, what is the meaning of life? You know, and of course, no one knows. But, you know, I was like, what if having these values are preventing me from finding the meaning of life? And, you know, that's where I kind of looked around and I was looking at people like with families and all that. And I was like, maybe my values, I was like, maybe anyone's values are actually holding them off from different life experiences. Yeah. But I think that's okay. But I also think it's okay to change your values then. Yeah. So I think my values have changed a bit. You know, I can't jump on a plane and go anywhere. Well, I probably could a little bit, but you know, I have a home now. I have a couch that I own that I can't, you know, put in a suitcase. But you know, it's kind of like, again, I've kind of changed my values a bit. And again, so I'm happy, you know, like when I see, you know, especially when I'm out freezing, walking, you know, my eyes out because it's so cold, and I'm watching videos in Bali, I don't get upset or jealous or anything. I'm like, no, I made the decision based off my value. I wanted to be closer to my family, having more purpose in my life in terms of work. And yeah, so I'm not, I think I just don't want any frustration for me or for other people. So I think once you know, you're aware of your values and your decisions, you just remove that frustration then.
Yeah. I agree. And I think I love that. I love how you're saying that your values can shift. Like I think freedom, when freedom was a massive one for you, freedom is a massive one for me at the minute. So I'm like the ability to, like, I'm not ready to commit to renting anywhere. So
Yeah,
every time
yeah,
I'm home between things, I'm like, Mom, can I just come home for a little while? And everyone's
yeah,
like, I have this lovely place if you want to rent. And I'm like, commitment, what? No.
yeah. I signed a
But
2-year lease here. I actually nearly got sick. I was like, it's the biggest commitment I've ever made.
But I'm reading a book at the minute actually, and it's Brian Tracy's book on goals, because I want to run like a proper goal setting workshop where we talk about values, and he talks about, like your values shape your beliefs shape your expectations shape your attitude is your actions. And I was like, when you actually get to the nitty gritty of it, like when people are saying, oh, I have this goal of weight loss, but then it's like socializing and all these things are number one. I'm like, you're always going to be battling against yourself and it's okay if that's not a
Yeah,
value of yours. If health and fitness isn't a value of yours, that's absolutely fine as well. Like I will outright say travel for me is a massive value for me, and not from actually wanting to go and see cool places in the world. It's something you said on a recent podcast as well. It's about like experiencing different cultures and stuff
yeah.
like that, and seeing how other people do things on the other side of the world. And I remember actually when I was in Bali, I keep bringing it back to Bali, but I was hiking up Mount Batur on like the rainiest day of the whole
Ugh,
time I was there, and it was
that was
just,
unfortunate.
oh, very unfortunate, because I think you went a week or two later and it was gorgeous. And I was like in this big raincoat. It was just me and this Indonesian woman and her granddaughter. And
Oh,
just three of
wow.
us hiking up, like, and it was just so random. And it was absolutely pissing rain. And I was just like, she was telling me all about how hard things were at the time. Her daughter or her granddaughter was telling me all about like things going on in school, and they stopped to pray on the way up. And I just took it all in, and I was just like, okay, look, like I can look at the rain as the rain being a pain in the arse, or I can look at this as like, what an incredible opportunity to talk to people on the other
Yeah,
side of the world and just see things differently. So I was like when it comes to values, just bringing it back again, when I say travel to people, I always say it's not to go and like, go and see these cool places. Yes, that's part of it, but experiencing new cultures. So you could say like relationships and stuff. So I was like, it can all tie in together. But
yeah.
this actually brings me. So what would you say if I had to say top 3 to 5 values for you right now would be?
Oh, it actually, I had to write it down yesterday. I was going through a new list is for the yoga teacher training, and it actually made me realize how much they've changed. Um, so now this is, and people probably be surprised, I've connection, peace, growth, happiness, and authenticity.
Love it. Love it.
So yeah, no freedom.
No freedom. I
I
have
know,
my
but
couch
I do
now.
have my own freedom. Yeah, the couch is just tying me down.
It's a nice couch. It's a nice couch. But that actually leads me on, and I think it ties in really well with one of your most recent posts. You were saying you don't want an easy life anymore. Like, in order to be fulfilled, we need to be challenged. And like, I think that's come from exactly like what you just said in your values list. Like, we can't grow in our comfort zone. So you had this moment, which I think breathwork, meditation, yoga, like, I know meditation isn't for everyone. I was like, I know yoga isn't for everyone, but I'm like, if you can find something that allows you to be present with yourself, you'll be surprise what will come up for you in
Yeah,
your guidance system to tell you what to do. So I
yeah.
love this post when you put it up, because I was like, you're really thriving at the minute, and like you just, life is just going really well. So I was like, I love that recent post you did.
Yeah, no, I think it is important to have that feeling of growth. And like that's what I realized that I was missing. Because as I said, everything was just going really well in Bali, like at the business, because I'd always valued freedom so much. I'd always like delegate and outsource as much as I could. Like spent the money to do that so that I had more free time. Which is great. But then all of a sudden I had all this free time and not really anything purposeful to work on. And, so that's where I was confused. I kind of like, at the time, I didn't really notice it, but I was kind of this unease where I was getting up, going training, enjoying my life, doing, having great food with great people, cruising around, no stress at all. But I think that's what I was missing was a struggle. And I think that's why I like jujitsu so much, because I felt like that gave me a real struggle and I had to overcome it. And I, feel the reward of it, and I'd get knocked down and go again and again. And I realized I needed that more with life. And like, I find that now, like obviously paying rent in London is very different to Bali, and it means I have to work a bit more. I've definitely had bigger challenges here, even getting the tube in the snow into train people. It's not as easy as, cruising around in the moped, but I just feel like I have more purpose out of it.
Yeah.
And so I'm feeling happier now.
I love that. I love that. And one of my clients is actually, she's massively into jujitsu, and she keeps saying to me, she was like, please come down when you're home. And I'm always only home for a little bit of time. And I was like, I
Yeah, no, if you're
promise I'll
only,
start.
if you do 1 or 2 sessions, you'll probably get scared off. You'll be like, what is that? You kind of need a couple of weeks at it to even make any kind of sense. And that's why so many people get, they don't see it through, because they do 1 session, maybe 2, and they're like, that makes no sense, and like don't really get it. But like, it's only when you start learning, it's like learning a language. Like, it's like you have to keep learning, keep practicing. So it's, and that's the other thing with traveling. I realized I valued my jujitsu so much, and I was like, this whole jumping around, but like I was mostly in Bali or Ireland, or Portugal, but it was always like 2 months on, 2 months off of training. And like, as with learning a language, like you need to keep it going.
Yeah.
So then I was like, it's perfect. I'll go back to London, join Roger Gracie's, hopefully get my blue belt. And then, so I've got that this week, and I'm like, everything's just working out.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's like yoga though as well. It's like people do 1 or 2 classes and they're like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get
it. That was me for years. Like, even in Bali, like I'd be like, oh, I'll go do a session. There's a place called Odyssey in Canggu, and I used to always go there. Well, like, not always, sorry. I'd go to like maybe yin yoga on a Sunday, and I'd tell myself I must go there more. And I'd go for one class maybe on like a Tuesday, and it'd be like 75 minutes long. I'd be so flexible and like hated it, but it was like, it'd feel great after. I'm like, Mom, must do that again. And I wouldn't. But like, what changed for me was in the pandemic, I got the app like Down Dog, started doing 5, because you get completely customizable. So I do like 5 minutes a day, and then, which was completely attainable. And then I would increase it like to 6 minutes for the next week. And all of a sudden I found myself doing like 45 minutes a day, every day, and feeling the benefits. And I was, I realized that it's not like you need the consistency more than you need like the big long classes.
Yeah.
So like, I'm always raving about it.
Why do you practice yoga? I'm jumping 3 questions later now, but this just segues really well. Because I think people started for the physical. Like, I started for the physical. I was coming back from an injury, and I got like, I did Adrian's 30-day challenge that everyone does online.
Everyone. I think I started with that too. I didn't even think I did the 30 days. I think I did a few and then found Down Dog.
Which would have been handier, because I swear to God, by like day 20, I was just like, no, I'm not. But then the stubborn competitiveness in me was just like, you're going to do the 30 days. And I was injured as well, so I couldn't dance, couldn't really train or anything. So I was like, perfect time. But I was like, it started as that. And then you got into it. And then you start, I think for me, like massive changes in my life started happening, where I just found, when in hindsight, I just started listening to my own intuition a little bit more and going a bit more in. And I think step 1, like you're probably doing it in your course now, is like they tell you, it's the physical body, and you're listening to your physical body. But then you go into the deeper layers, and as you keep going in and in and in, you realize you have a guidance system in there, whether you believe in a higher power or yourself or your intuition. And all of a sudden you'll start listening to these signs that you've probably been ignoring for years. And I'm like, can't believe all that came from yoga.
Yeah.
Such resistance.
It's mad. It's just movement of the body. And, people see it as stretching, and I'm like, no. And to be honest, I find more that it's made my joints stronger. Like, I don't mean Warrior 2, and you feel like your hip engaged. I'm like, this, I feel like it's more about mobility for me than flexibility. And I mean, in the physical sense. And then, I mean, so yeah, I feel like I need to do it every day to prevent injury. It's kind of like I suppose the yin to my intense martial arts training. Like, I need that. And then mentally, like, I don't know. I think for me, a lot of it for me was then I wanted the routine. Like, I started in the pandemic because I was kind of bored and needed, I'd read Atomic Habits a few times and was like, I need to implement this. It's something I've always wanted to do, but never implemented it. So I kind of saw that as an opportunity to do a couple of minutes a day because I had time. I wasn't rushing off to training like I used to always. And then I started feeling the benefits. I remember just sitting one time in the park in the pandemic, we had to meet, in the park, and sitting down cross-legged, and was like, oh my God, I've been sitting here for a few minutes. And I was never able to do that because I'd done bodybuilding for years without a single stretch. And I was so inflexible, still am a lot, but there's and seeing those physical improvements without feeling like I had done that much, like, because I was just doing a couple of minutes every day, it was building. And it's like everything in life, I say consistency over perfection. Well, not everything in life, a lot of things. And I do think, like, I don't get that spiritual into it. Like, I like meditate at the end, like for Shavasana, and I really like that calming thing. Like the amount of times that's brought like a daily email to me that I then go market and sell business, like I find those couple of minutes give me the creativity, and it's just part of my morning routine. And it's, again, it's something that is a constant in my life when I've been always traveling so much. So, no matter where I go, do some sort of yoga. Like even I've done it without mats, like it's like coffee and yoga. It's like my constants when everything else is changing.
I love that. I love that. And you can always bring your mat with you as well, especially if you have a little travel mat.
Depending on flight restrictions, baggage restrictions.
Not if you're flying with Ryanair to London and you only have the small little bag.
Yeah, no, I think I have one in all locations now. Like I have one in Dublin, Portugal, London, Bali. A lot of stuff in Bali I need to get.
Like we'll get back there at some stage. Yeah. But actually, this kind of brings me on. So like I'm going back a little bit here, but you went down the pathway that I know a lot of personal trainers do. And I was very tempted to go down this as well. So you become a personal trainer, you do your nutrition course, I can get in really good shape without like a huge amount of effort. Maybe I might go and compete. And for me, like I coming from years of working as a professional dancer, I was competing. I was like, there has to be something more. What can I do now? What can I do now? Always looking for something. And it was so inspiring. I know you really struggled with the journey after it, but I love how honest you always are, and how you actually dealt with after the bodybuilding competition, and your raw honesty was the thing that made me question, no, I'm not going to go into this. And like, do you want to talk a little bit about your story?
So it's like looking back now, sometimes I'm like, why did I do that? But also now I see that it was the process I enjoyed. It was the struggle, and I say I think that's what I needed at the time, because I got to a point where, like I was building my Instagram following. I had got myself into good shape and I was really happy with my body. And I was like, what's next? And I worked in a gym that, a lot of people had competed. And to be honest, a lot of people had done it very unhealthily, drugs, everything. And I always said I'd never do it. And then I saw my friend, she had done it, but like had been traveling and stuff. And I was like, hey, can I do that? And, we kind of then thought about, and I was like, yeah, like I need a challenge. Like I want to do it healthily, and we talked about that, and I did. Like I relished the challenge. I was so rigid, but also like I didn't have to struggle because I had a good coach that I was like, she was aware of the female body. If I was really struggling, she'd tell me to eat more. And I had weekends where I went to weddings and everything. And I really I enjoyed the process and got on stage, did really well, was shocked. Like, I think because I had very little stress, I had a lot of muscle starting it, I was strong. So like I came in really lean and was like, oh, great. And then afterwards, I really struggled, body image, like with food, everything. And like looking back now, I can see that I probably did have issues with food beforehand, but like they weren't, I wouldn't have thought it was anything to flag, but I really struggled for those 6 months afterwards. I was binging. I was like hating my body. I was being really restrictive and then binging and really restrictive. And like my head, it's so funny because my head was in one place. My head was like split in two. I always say my head was like, you look grand. Like you're wearing a size 10. Like, what are you talking about? And then the other half of me was like, no, you can't go in there. They're going to judge you because I got so much praise and so much attention and new followers and everything because I got shredded. I felt like, and that sense of accomplishment, I felt like I was just going backwards, and it meant that I wasn't enjoying my training because I was like, what am I training for? Like, I'm just getting fatter, even though like underneath I knew I needed to. It was a strange time in my head, I realize now. But then as soon as I started talking about that struggle, so many people that I'd followed who had, I would say glamorized bikini competing, and they'd be like, oh my God, thank you so much. It's exactly how I felt. And I was like, oh, why didn't you say it? Then it would have stopped me getting into this position. Now, obviously it wasn't their fault at all. But, I was like, why is no one talking about this? I thought I was the only one. But I'd kind of noticed it. Like I'd girls I'd followed, you'd see them, the whole thing getting to stage, shredded every day, ab checks every day. And then they disappear. Like you wouldn't see them online. They post an odd stage pic the odd time. So I was always like, no, I'm not going to be like that. I'll post the whole thing, and I post every day, as usual. But I really, really struggled, and like I thought the only thing that would make me get back to being disciplined was to do another show. So I'd signed up with Larry and I was like, right, let's do this. And actually what changed there was the way he had me tracking calories and stuff. And that like I had to track everything, or not had to, sorry. And we looked at averages for the week, you know, like I put it all into a calculator. Whereas before on my fitness pal, if I went over it, I'd be like, oh, failed today. So I'll just keep going. You know, like I'm just like, oh, I've gone over. So I'm just not going to track the rest. But that was something that made me just be a bit more mindful with my decisions. You know, like I knew that there were days I was going to eat loads, but there was no judgment or anything. It was just like, put it in, look at the numbers, see how your body reacts. And then I was in Thailand and, you know, meeting loads of new people that I've never met before. And, you know, everyone thought I was in great shape. And I was like, no, let me show you a picture of me 6 months ago. Like I used to be in good shape. But then I kind of like learned a new appreciation for my body. I found CrossFit. And I started saying to Larry, like, do you think I could do the prep out here? Like if I was just doing CrossFit and like not counting calories, because I'm actually really enjoying that. And he was like, I think we both said like, wait, why am I competing again? Yeah. And then I decided to leave it. And then I just found myself actually wanting to eat so that I could train hard. So I could, you know, get actually fit. You know, I was so strong, but I was so unfit. And yeah, discover CrossFit, traveling, just realized there was more to life. I kind of used to look back and be like, why did I do that? And even until recently, I never understood why anyone would do it. But now again, thinking about struggles and having like purpose, I think that's what that's what was fueling it at the time. And I can see that in other people too. So yeah, it's something that's shaped me a lot. I've learned a lot about mindset, about body image, and it's definitely helped me with women. And I'm glad I did speak out, even though I got so much hate from other competitors. I'm glad I did it, because it means, like, say someone like yourself who was thinking it was great, like I might have saved you. But I mean, a lot of people have disordered eating. A lot of women, especially around my age, would have disordered eating habits or tendencies even. And, you know, they think the next thing to do is to do competition, but that's actually the last thing that people like that should do. You know, it should be people who have a really good relationship with food, or even like, especially come from an athletic background, like not like say maybe for you would have been fine, but for me, like someone who's just spent their whole life dieting, it's just like, it's not the right move.
No, absolutely. Like you have no idea how much you saved me, because I'm coming from like a dancer working for years in the industry. It was chronic. Like it was absolutely horrific. I talk about it a lot. Like I work with a lot of dancers, like relationship with food. It's like there's the thinner is better narrative, and then there's the dancer thinner is better narrative, which takes on a whole other level. Like, and it's still so prevalent today. So when I think about it, like I like to think I have a good relationship with food now, but you saved me from going down that track, because I know when I get onto something, I'm going to do really well in it and I am going to do this perfectly. And I was like, it's not the lead up to these things that I think would have been the issue. I was like, it's after it. And I think like you coming out and speaking about it, you have no idea how many people you have helped. So even though you're kind of thinking maybe at the time, why did I do that? Sometimes I think like when we do go through these really hard things, and we are open for speaking about them, sometimes it is actually just to actually speak about them, and so other people know that they're not going through these things on their own. Which actually brings me perfectly then to the next question about the thinner is better narrative. Like do you think this is still one of the biggest struggles that I say women, but men as well, but obviously I work mainly with women as well. I was like, I just think it's still so prevalent. And like when I'm working with clients and they're telling me their goals, same as yourself, like you'd be like, why do you want this? Do you want this because you want it? Or do you want this because society has told you growing up that you should have a smaller body, and therefore you get loads of praise when you get a smaller body? Like you were there, you experienced it. Do you think it's still...
I think I see this a lot. Like I used to always think, you know, the leaner you are, the happier you are. But I see myself now and I'm like, I'm so happy with, you know, whatever weight I am, whatever size I am now, because I'm not even, sometimes I'm like, God, I look great, even though I'm not even trying. But like, I actually probably look technically, you know, like this body would have been a nightmare for me when I was doing my competition. You know, like it would have been if someone said you're going to be happy at 72 kilos, I'd be like, no. You know, I stepped on stage like 62. But yeah, I see so many women who are not happy with their body, and they sign up to me and they, they want to get leaner, and they don't need to change their body, they need to change their mind.
Yeah.
And it's because I always talk about like resistance and working with your body and not against it. And if it comes to a point where, like, we might help them go into a slight calorie deficit, but if it comes to a point where it's becoming difficult to stick to, or your lifestyle doesn't allow it, like, that's where you have to kind of step back and go, like, what is actually important here? If having a social life and being able to eat with your friends and family, then we need to kind of sacrifice maybe the fat loss goals. And maybe if you're not losing weight on whatever 1,500 calories, maybe you will have to go lower to lose weight, but maybe you don't need to lose weight. And well, we don't say it so abruptly, but yeah, it's that kind of it's trying to shift people's mindset. And and I always do that, like, drill down why, why do you feel like that? It's like, oh, because I know I'll be healthier. Like, why? Just keep drilling down. And like, it might come down to something like, because I want to attract a man. And then you're like, but do you really want to attract someone because you're a certain size? Like, do you want to attract someone who likes you for you? Or someone that likes, maybe he's someone who is attracted to your body, but it has to be a body that you feel good in or that you can sustain. So yeah, thinner is definitely not better. I don't know. I mean, in terms of, there's a lot of variables there, but for me, I've been loads of different sizes, and I'm happiest when I'm, as I said, like, eating well, training well. Like, I've been leaner and unhealthier and not felt good. I've been bigger and I've felt amazing. I look back at videos in like 2019, I'd put on a good bit of weight that year, but I kind of had done it purposely. Like, I knew I was using that year to travel and everything. And it's funny, actually, in 2020, I ended up losing loads of weight because I was just like doing nothing, and everyone was like, Dublin suits you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, stop telling me that, because I'm actually going to go back to having the crack as soon as I can.
Yeah.
But I was aware of that, like, I was like, yeah, people, I'm lean now because I'm having no fun. But I was like, 2019, I had the best year ever. Like, I think I don't know how many countries I was in, how many weddings, festivals, everything. And I was like, that was my body. Like, I was doing, in terms of health, obviously not ideal because I was probably drinking a lot. But, I was saying health is not a size. Like, health will look different. And that's why I always say about commenting on people's body shape and stuff. Like, you could be saying people look great, and that's because they haven't eaten anything, because they're heartbroken or stressed or anything. And when they do eventually look after their health and put on some fat, you are, they have a negative association with that. And yeah, so I mean, for some people, losing body fat will correlate with better health markers. I'm not saying don't lose body fat, but it has to be done in a healthy manner.
Yeah, I agree. And like, I'm completely in the middle ground here. Like, I'll never say I'm pro diet, I'll never say I'm anti-diet, because on the flip side of things, on the anti-diet side, what really, really triggers me is, I'm like, once again, you were telling women how they should feel about their bodies. You're telling them they should be happy at this size, no matter what. I was like, there's nothing wrong with someone coming and they're saying, I just want my jeans to fit a little bit better. And maybe I want more energy to play with my kids. Maybe, like, I just want to look after my heart. For some people, like, losing weight is actually a good goal to have. And I was like, so on the anti-diet side, I get really annoyed at that as well. I was like, you were doing the exact same thing that you're giving out about diet culture. Right, you're once again telling women how they should feel about their bodies. I was like,
it's the polarization, that's the problem. It's having people saying diets don't work, and I'm like, they do. But well, I think, and I get the sentiment, because I do think that if I had never dieted ever, I'd have a much better relationship with my body. And I think my body, I do think you'd find, kind of a natural set point for your lifestyle. But I do think that dieting, like, bringing in big restrictions, ended up in me putting on weight. So like, the biggest thing I have with clients is actually not getting them to eat less, it's actually getting them to eat more. Because you find then when people aren't hungry, they make rational decisions and they're able to listen to their own hunger levels and what their body needs. But it's very hard to listen to that when you're constantly dieting. And when I say dieting, I mean like really low calorie. So I get the idea of saying, like, stop being so restrictive and listen to your body. And like, but I think, again, it's been polarized. It's been like, when they start saying diets don't work and any kind of like counting calories is obsessive and blah, blah. I'm like, no, I sit in the middle. But the problem is, and that's where I think my business sits in the middle as well, is if we, because sometimes when I first learned about diet culture, I was like, oh my God, I am the problem. I was like, I'm there doing before and after pictures everywhere. I didn't realize. And then, but again, that was a very much anti-diet book that I'd read, and I was nearly going to shut down the program. And then I realized, I was like, if I'm not there in the middle, you've got these people then doing your 6-week transformations that will do anything to get the money, get the pictures, and they will put their clients through, unhealthy eating habits just to get those results. And then those clients then, when they inevitably can't keep it up, and they, they'll go back to them again to pay them again. And I just think, I feel like we sit in the middle ground where we teach people compassion and teach them give them the education on numbers and training and how to look at it in an adult way. I would say, like, eating like an adult. So I sit in the middle. I think polarization is where we're going to confuse people.
I think what you do is really, really important, because like you do need people in the middle ground, because I've had so many people come to, like, I'm not in the industry that long. I only launched my business last year, and I have just been absolutely shocked with some stuff clients came to me. Like, one client came to me and she was saying how she was working with a trainer before, and if she went out at the weekend, he wouldn't train her for 2 weeks. Like, punishment for things.
No, and I mean, that can work in the short term, but I always say to people, like, you have to be intrinsically motivated. Like, you cannot be doing things because someone else is going to punish you or a reward or whatever. It has to be because you want to do it. And sometimes our coaches can seem like a little soft, but it's not going to work in the long run if they're giving out to you. Any kind of changes, lifestyle, physical, anything, it needs to come from a place of love and not for hate for yourself. It has to come from a place of respecting your body and not hating it. And that can take some time to learn that, especially if you've been years of diet culture and been told that, like, having any kind of fat is bad, or that you own, like, and this thing, it's like cardio and diets, it's like just breaking your body down. And I'm more about, like, let's get strong and fit. And then, use diet a little bit to shape your body if you want.
But ironically, I always say to my clients, I'm like, look, I'll educate you in everything in nutrition. I was like, training. When you start ticking the boxes, right? Fat loss usually happens. I was like, as a byproduct. So let's,
you need patience, though. That's the problem. People don't have patience.
Consistency.
Or they're using the scales as a sign of measure, or using the scales as a measure of progress, which is just asking for trouble.
But I've had like a couple of clients now, and I got a message off one this week, and she was getting ready like for her Christmas party and stuff like that. And she was like, this is not the thinnest I've ever been, but she was like, this is the happiest I've ever been. And she was like, I am literally normally in tears getting ready to go to these parties. And she was like, I don't know what it is. Maybe, Narissa, it is all the mindset stuff. And I was like, who would have thought?
I mean, we've clients all the time who want to be, like, oh, I want to fit into this dress I wore like to a Christmas party last year. And I'm like, but like, let's look at your lifestyle last year. Like, I remember one girl, she wanted to be a certain weight. I was like, well, what did your lifestyle look like at the time? She's like, oh, I was doing 4 hours of training and boxing and eating really little, and like, I had no energy. I'm like, so why no? It's like, it's so unhealthy. It's like, let's look at what's realistic. And I just think, like, a slight calorie deficit over a long period of time, so you can enjoy your life, you can maximize your health and your social life.
And actually have a life as well, though, because I just feel like, especially when you see, I think same as yourself, when you have people coming and they've been on like 1,200 calories or whatever, and next thing you put their calories at 1,700, and they're like, whoa, what? And I was like, just trust me. Have you ever been able to stick to the 1,200? And they're like,
you're like, I can't eat that much, or like, I never, or I normally, what was it? I got it once. It was like, oh, when I track, I only have 1,200, and I was like, keyword when you track. What about the other days? And that's it. Like, I mean, that's like what Larry did to me years ago. It's like, okay, let's just track everything, even roughly, not like no judgment, get the numbers high, like whatever number it is, it's great, because we look at averages for the week, and that makes such a difference. It means then if there's days of really high calories, like if you have an extra 700 calories today, it's actually only 100 extra on your average for the week. So there's so much room to play around. So then it removes the negative thoughts, it removes the restriction, or it's just like, you just get on with your week or your day. I mean, that's why I like tracking calories for most people. Like, some people do, I find like when people become obsessive about it, it's because they're tracking too little. Like, when your body is starving, yes, it's going to just constantly think about when it's going to get fed next. But when you're actually properly fed and you've got energy, and like the amount of people that were like, oh my God, I've got so much energy, I'm sleeping better. I'm like, because food is fuel, like it's energy. Like, if you're 1,200 calories and you can't figure out why you're wrecked all day, like, stop just having coffees and eat more actual energy.
I remember going to bed like hungry and everything, and I was just like, you'd be going to bed thinking about breakfast in the morning, and this is before I knew anything about nutrition. Like, I swear to God, I'd hate to see what my protein intake was like
Yeah.
back when I was dancing. I was like, it was awful. But I'd be going to bed hungry and not being able to sleep, and then waking up exhausted, starving all the time. And I think about it now, and I'm just like, oh my God, I spent so many years, and I just wish it was something that, like, I'm a big advocate now is for like informing dancers and working with dancers and realizing
Yeah.
like you have such intense jobs, like when you're on tour and stuff like that, you need to be
The
fueling your
amount of
body.
calories you'd need to be taken in.
Oh, crazy. I was actually just on tour there for a couple of weeks. I went back to randomly do a couple of weeks, and I was like roughly tracking calories, not so much because I knew what I needed to eat. I was roughly tracking them because I'm trying to like put something together that may potentially be able to help dancers on tour, because it's really hard to find like protein stuff in that in Germany and that. So I was
Yeah.
roughly trying to track just to find things, and I was like, whoa, like I was like pushing the boat out way up with the calories. And then my friend kept turning around, he was like, I feel like you're still losing weight. I was like, I know, I'm eating. I'm trying. But I was like, it's so interesting to see, like, back years ago, and I had no clue about nutrition. I was like, I would have been like, oh, this is great, I'm losing weight. And now, because I
The
want to,
stress your body was under.
oh, awful. Like, I felt horrific. Like, I'm so used to like doing my yoga and my training and going to bed at 10 o'clock, and the tour life for 3 weeks. I swear to God, Siobhan, I thought I was going to die. Like, every morsel of my body was aching. I came home and like slept for 12 hours, 3 nights. I was like, I think maybe I am too old for this. Maybe my values are shifting a little bit. But okay, so I know we need to wrap up soon because I know you're busy. But so what would you say? This is a random question. Your biggest achievement to date is? I know you've done a lot of stuff, but
Oh, I think I just love how close I am with my family. So like, and I always talk about things like, being able to bring them on holidays of a lifetime. Kind of seems superficial, but like it honestly, that like my dad sending me a message when we were in Abu Dhabi, been like, he's so proud that I can and want to do it. It honestly, that's my biggest achievement, is being able to like give back to my family. That
yeah,
the way that, I mean, we were always brought away as kids only because we had free flights, but my mom and dad did a lot for us, and it's so nice to be able to do it for them. Yeah, I mean, all the other things, like, they just don't seem to really matter when you drill down.
yeah. I love that though. Did you just go? Was it to South
We,
Africa? Did you bring them
yeah,
to
in
South
January
Africa?
2020, that was the big one. Like, that was when I
Yeah.
really couldn't afford it, and I was like, I had this idea. I think because it was when I was in Bali, and I was kind of like, my mom and dad were hinting about coming over, and I was like, I don't think you'd really like it, to be honest. I was picturing them on the back of a moped, and there was no golf or good wine. Um, so I was like, why don't we go somewhere else? And I was looking at Thailand, and then I just Googled like winter golf, and I saw South Africa, and I was like, oh my God, that would be a holiday. And I went and got it priced up, and I was like, never mind. And then I was like, why do I even have my car there? And I was like, maybe I'll sell my car. And still have it in my journal, where I was like, it just feels right to make this happen. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. I'll sell the car. And I did that, made it happen, did it a bit cheaper than the quote I got. And the holiday of a lifetime. And that was in January 2020. And then we were all separated for months. Then, we didn't get to see each other. And it was just like, I'm so glad we did that. It was, even during the pandemic, my dad used to send a video in every day, and we'd watch it, of like highlights of each day of the holiday.
Oh,
So that was amazing. And then, yeah, we're just back from 2 weeks in Abu Dhabi for the Formula One, because they're all into the Formula One. And it was amazing to be able to bring them, and like just to see everyone there all together. And it's just, yeah, I had the holiday of a
also
lifetime.
very jealous. That looked unreal.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, very good.
And actually, this is one thing, I didn't have this written down, but journaling. You are massively into journaling. What would your
Yes.
main journal prompts be? Because I'm forever trying to get my clients into
Yeah,
journaling.
I keep it really simple. Like, it all started from, trying to improve my relationship with food, like, because I was thinking about it a lot. And I don't know how, I actually don't remember how I got into it, but I used to always kind of talk about, like, I would just reflect on the day before. So I'd say, yesterday, I'm glad that, and that would help me, like, be like, oh, I'm glad I went for dinner with my family, or I'm glad I, whatever, instead of just thinking about what did I eat, or I can't believe I had a pizza last night. It was just like kind of reflecting on what went well. And then I'd always say, like, today I'm excited for, um, so like when even like say days where I've nothing on, I'm just working from home, I'd still find something to look forward to. And then 3 things I'm grateful for. That's kind of and it's kind of where it starts, and it's normally like for coffee, for yoga, for, you know, if it's something simple. But also like if I've had something going on deep, you know, like I'd write down my thoughts and I'd really kind of question, like, is this true? Why, you know? And because you've times where you're really mean to yourself in your head and you're like, would I ever say this to someone else? And I do think writing that down helps you, like every morning, just decompressing your thoughts. Like it's so beneficial. I couldn't really, like, sometimes it's really boring now. Sometimes like my journal is like really just same old stuff, but I think it's really important to have the habit so that when things do hit the fan, you know, you've got that habit in place. And because I don't think you know, if you really need journaling and you don't normally do it, it's probably not the time you're going to pick it up, where you won't have the mindset. Like it just kind of calms your head and makes you think, am I thinking rationally or irrationally, or am I looking at all perspectives of this, and am I considering other people's point of views? I love it. I think it's really important.
It's always good to have to look back on. I started a course there a while ago, The Artist's Way, and it's kind of like you have to do the stream of consciousness writing every morning. And at the start, I was like 3 A4 pages first thing in the morning, like, and I love like my morning routine. So I felt like this was half an hour in the morning that was just triggering me. But then I got really into it, and all of a sudden the shit that was coming out. How is this in my head? But you start noticing patterns, and you're like, wow, that is something that's clearly playing in my subconscious that I am just not bringing to light, and I need it. So I was like, things like that, like it's great. Like,
it's so important to like to as I said, to analyze your thoughts. Like some people are just kind of going around like just surviving, and I'm like, we need to like slow down and take that space between intentions and actions, and like just, you know, be clear on values and goals and make decisions from a good place.
And the power in the pause. I always talk about this to my clients. I was like, whether it's taking a breath, whether it's journaling, whether it's anything else. And I think this is where like breathwork, meditation, all that kind of stuff, it teaches you to do that. And it's like, it teaches you to question your own thoughts. Otherwise, I think years ago, I'm like, oh my God, every thought that popped into my head, I was like, that is real. That is absolutely real. Yeah. And now I think back on it now, I was like, there is still people walking around thinking everything that pops into their head is real. And I was like, this is why
especially when it comes to body composition or like nutrition and stuff. Yeah. Like, you know, people are saying horrible things to themselves in their head all the time.
Yeah.
And when you get into the practice of catching that and fixing it and realizing like, would you say that to another human? No, you can't say that about yourself, because it does, like, and your relationship with other people will start with your relationship with yourself. Like you have to be kind to yourself. And like, I mean, I have a lot of people who are unkind to me, but because I'm kind to myself, I can just greet it with like empathy and compassion.
Yeah. It's true though. It's like, okay, every relationship you have with someone in your life is going to be a mirror back to you. Like, so I like just when I encounter some people who are a little bit negative, like sometimes I don't mean to be so positive. People are like, Narissa, like, and I'm not for toxic positivity. I'm not. I'm like, feel your feelings, bawl crying, be angry. I get angry. I was like, but also I do like to see the positive side of things wherever I can, because I was like, life can be like, I've been there before. Life is way harder when you're seeing everything through a negative lens, because you start seeing people through a negative lens. So I was like, I think it is important. Like when you get that good relationship with yourself, you tend to be able to have easier relationships with people as well. Yeah, so I was like, I do think journaling is great for that as well. Okay, my last question then. If you could give one piece of advice to other women around our age, maybe younger women, about life, about anything, one golden nugget piece of advice.
Ooh.
It can be nutrition, training, or anything life. You know, I'm a big mindset person, so I mean, it can be whatever you want.
I feel like this is going to be deep, but like I can't really think of anything specific. I mean, I think it's like just become as self-aware as you can. Yeah. Like do the work around becoming what's important to you, and then do it.
My thing I always say, I got asked this on a podcast before and they really put me on the spot, and I was like, oh my God. And then I was thinking back of like this yoga guy I was watching. I was like, question everything. And they were like, they were like,
I used to actually say that as well. Yeah. Question everything. Like I love being curious, and like curiosity is a big thing for me as well. Just didn't make the top 5 values there, but curiosity is definitely one.
I was like, sometimes I end up like, my new thing is I've gone down like the quantum physics YouTube bandwagon. So I'm like, everything, is anything real? And I was like, oh no, Narissa, you need to like pull it back a little bit. So on the podcast, I was like, question everything. Like everything's a construct. They were like, on a fitness podcast, they were like, and any nutrition advice, I was like, consistency over perfection.
Yeah, that one too. That's like my tagline: consistency over perfection.
And eventually, like when you do say it like enough times, people are like, you know what? I think you're right about that consistency over perfection thing. I was like, I know, right?
Yeah.
Oh, but thank you so much for coming on, Siobhan.
No problem. Thanks. That was a great chat.
I know. I was like, I definitely could have made this 2 hours. So I was like, right, no, I promise I'll keep this snappy.
I know, it's great.
But thank you so much for coming on, and have a lovely Christmas and safe flight
you
home
too. You
tomorrow.
Too.
Are you flying home tomorrow?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, might have to change flight. Long story, but I'll let you go. Thanks
a minute, Siobhan. I'll chat to you soon. Bye.